Hello, my name is Giselle Weezar, and today I will be analyzing the AB 600 law. The lead author of the AB 600 law is Assemblymember Philip Ting and is sponsored by Assemblymembers Ting, Isaac Bryan, and Mike Gibson. The law was approved by Governor Gavin Newsom October 8, 2023, and was enacted January 1, 2024. The purpose of the law is to allow the courts to recall the sentencing of a defendant with the intention of reducing the sentence or vacating the conviction altogether at any given time. This law also requires judges to analyze and review various factors about not only the case, but also the defendant as a person. I personally picked this law because since I learned about the Stanford Prison Experiment in high school, I've been curious about the prison system. I believe the California prison system has many weaknesses, and with rehabilitation and facilities, there can be much improvement in California as a whole. However, like any law, but especially one that has to do with the prison system, there's a lot of controversy and pros and cons that come with it. But for starters, I'd like to talk about the pros. The strongest pro argument is that this law could ultimately stop the overcrowding in prisons by offering an opportunity for people reconvicted. This is extremely beneficial as the College of Law states that California prisons are currently 10% over capacity. The article then goes on to explain that this is very detrimental to the inmates, as with overcrowding, violence has spiked due to less supervision and safety measures being in place, and also causes overcrowding in programs that help the inmates better themselves and rehabilitate or even get early releasal. It's nearly impossible to rehabilitate someone when there's 5 people in a room meant for only one person. The overcrowding problem started in the 1970s, as the law offices of John D. Rogers point out in an article, when the 3-strike rule and the tough on crime policies began. Many people were thrown in prison for petty crimes or crimes that no longer serve justice as laws have changed. Also, the article points out that many people that are incarcerated are not first-time offenders, and it's usually a cycle where someone is incarcerated, then is released, and because of lack of rehabilitation programs or lack of support or lack of job opportunities or lack of support system, the ex-inmates end up back in prison, and sometimes for life because of policies like the 3-strike rule. With the new AB 600 law, it is required for judges to consider if the defendant was a youth at the time of the crime, suffered trauma as a child, and also consider post-conviction factors like trauma they suffered in or after prison because of flaws in the system. So, the ability for judges to shorten sentences or convictions at any given time is extremely beneficial for solving the problem that is overcrowding in California prisons and serves justice to those convicted for petty crimes, which ultimately leads to prison reform. I'd say a very relevant example of this in recent times is those convicted for marijuana-related charges are now offered the opportunity to be retried now that marijuana is no longer illegal in California. But like I mentioned, with any law, especially when it has to do with prison, there is controversies and pros and cons. So now I'll go into the cons. The strongest con argument is that the decision is fully up to the courts. Basically, the judge has sole power to decide whether to recall the sentencing and can make the decision on if there will be resentencing and how long or short that will be. Senator Brian Dale points out that with this law, attorney generals or district attorneys are not a part of the resentencing or necessary for approval. Many people see this as undermining the role of the prosecution, as it can be taken as erasing their work and job title. Not only that, as Spalding and Dukes mentions, the judge is the only person that can initiate this process. An inmate or their attorney cannot be the ones to appeal or petition their case for revision or resentencing. Therefore, it's up to solely one person, which is the judge, to begin the process. This can lead to a lot of cases that were tried unfairly or now no longer serve justice because of law changes to be left unseen or unheard. It also disrupts the justice system as a whole, many taking it as well then what's the point of the prosecutors if a judge will just change their decisions anyway? These flaws make the law seem a bit radical or too taboo for the justice system. In conclusion, the AB 600 California law can give shorter sentences and vacate convictions, which ultimately gives inmates a second choice and can be good for prison reform, but can also undermine the justice system as it takes away from the prosecutor's role and also is left in the hands of one person, that being a judge. Overall, I believe that the pros outweigh the cons. It's great to see the courts take action in humanizing and empathizing with certain people incarcerated and understanding it's a systemic issue and not a personal issue. There are flaws, but the law is new, as it was enacted this year, so I believe that with time, there will be more safeguards and modifications to ensure success in its intentions. This law could be a great step forward in prison reform. These are my references. Thank you for listening.